He's out there hawking sneakers. He's out there hawking whatever he can, grifting off the poorest of Americans.
That was former Trump fixer Michael Cohen pointing out how his former boss grifts his fans. Those are $400 gold sneakers, which, let me show you. Those are tacky as hell. Oh my God. $400 shoes. I don't care if they're the coolest shoes on the planet, which those are obviously not. I would never pay that much for footwear. Now, wait. So Cohen was speaking with CNN's John Berman on Monday, following the over $350 million judgment against him in his New York City fraud trial, where he was also barred from doing business in New York for 3 years. Now, a day after he was ordered to pay that, Trump showed up at Philadelphia's SneakerCon, I kid you not, to introduce this absolute abomination, which I'm pretty sure breaks the flag code. Or USC Section 8 says, the flag should never be used as wearing apparel, bedding, or drapery. No part of the flag should ever be used as a costume or athletic uniform. Not my rules, their rules, but MAGA chuds apparently don't care. They're in a cult. How else do you explain buying a pair of $400 gaudy-ass Trump shoes? Okay. Now, I want to get back to Cohen's argument here on CNN. Take a look at that and then dive deeper.
The rich poor man and a rich man, well, figure out how to put some money in his pocket, because that's all Donald Trump cares about. He doesn't care about America. He's out there hawking sneakers. He's out there hawking whatever he can, grifting off the poorest of Americans. Think about it. Who's supporting Donald Trump and the use of his 757 plane? Who's supporting Donald with all of his legal fees? It's the poorest people in America. And that's what Vladimir Putin will be taking advantage of.
So Michael Cohen makes a pretty good point about Trump. All he wants to do is raise money. He wants to grift people. Yes, that's what the whole thing has always been about. How to stuff more money into his pockets, right? That's why he got, in my opinion, that's why he got into politics. Okay, he wasn't there to make America great again. It's to make himself rich again, as if he ever was. But here's the thing: Trump does take advantage of poor people, of course, but not only poor people. In fact, most of the people that went to January 6th, for example, they weren't poor. They were middle class. They were business owners. They were people of some certain of means, right? That's who's keeping Donald Trump afloat, along with, of course, some very rich people, all right? It's not just the people in the sticks. It's the people in the suburbs, too, and in the corporate high towers, all right? So let me get, though, to white middle class people, okay? These are people who are afraid to lose their standard of living because they think that immigrants are going to come and replace them. All right? Or black people would come in and move into their neighborhoods or gated communities and lower their property values. Okay? Those are Trump voters. They're not going to admit it, but enough of them buy into those conspiracies, into, for example, the Great Replacement theory, the idea that they'll be replaced or that they'll be the victim of black crime, that Trump can win elections and Trump adjacent candidates end up winning their elections. That's how this works. When you talk about crime, by the way, crime in just about every major city is massively down all across the country, with Washington, D.C. being the exception, okay? But you got people, white middle class, again, thinking, oh my God, crime is out of control all across the country, everywhere. It's terrible. But then when you ask them, how's crime in your area? Oh, totally fine. I feel super safe in my area. It's just everywhere else in the country that it's just completely on fire and falling apart. It is so bizarre. But then, of course, you look at crime coverage on the news, and, well, there's your answer. If it bleeds, it leads. And everyone thinks, as a result of the news that tends to be focused a lot on crime, that's why they think the country's falling apart, when it really isn't. Now, that said, Trump, getting back to him, he's clearly grifting off his supporters in order to pay his legal fees. I mean, that's what he does. It's what he's done forever. Okay. And it's another way that Trump has gotten away with avoiding taking any accountability for his actions. He's never had to, first because of his father. His father would always bail him out of any issues, or bail him out of his bankruptcies, for example. And then when his dad died, he was able to get all the money from that. And then, of course, you have bankruptcy laws that also helped him. So he would go bankrupt and declare bankruptcy, whatever, and then his businesses would shut down, but he'd walk away and he'd have the golden parachute. And then now his legal fees, you think finally some accountability, right? No, his fans keep sending him money. Look, on Saturday, for example, Elena Cardone, the wife of a real estate businessman Grant Cardone, made a GoFundMe page. Yes, a GoFundMe titled Stand with Trump, fund the $355 million unjust judgment following Engoron's ruling. Okay? Within 24 hours, that page raised $84,354 from 2,170 donations. The highest donation, which was sent anonymously, went for $2,500. There were also quite a few $100 donations, some $200 donations. Meanwhile, others donated anywhere from $5 to $25. And so, there's an example, right? Wealthy donors, middle donors, poor donors. There you go. Now, over the weekend, Cardone was asked, hey, why did you set up this GoFundMe to begin with? And she said, if this could happen to Donald Trump, it could happen to anyone who owned a business. Oh, okay. I mean, technically, yes, it could happen. But only if you engage in multiple decades of fraudulent behavior. That's the thing that's missing. It could happen to you if you do all these crimes. Yeah, that's kind of the point. Yes, if you're a criminal and you engage in fraud, you're going to get caught. I know. But if you're not engaging in fraud, generally you're okay. That's the real, yeah, that's the reality here, okay? Now, that said, by Sunday, that fundraiser raised about $287,000. Oh my goodness. Now, that said, there's a bit of a problem here with going the GoFundMe route, all right? According to an Associated Press reporter, interest on Trump's $355 million civil fraud penalty is actually piling up at a rate of $87,502 a day. Now, that GoFundMe page raised $84,354 in 24 hours, which means it raised slightly less than the interest for that day. Now, AP ran the numbers, and he said, as of today, he owes the state $453.7 million. That means the fundraising effort has so far raised about 4 days of interest. Huh. Wow. Now, getting back to the shoes, right? Trump's pumps. Even though they actually are selling pretty well, shockingly. I know. $400 gaudy-ass gold shoes that break the flag code, and yet selling like hotcakes to the MAGA faithful. Or are they? I don't know. You know what? Okay. First of all, he's going to need to sell a lot of these shoes to even, get close to making up the $355 million hole he dug himself into. Okay. But secondly, getting to who might be buying these shoes, I don't necessarily know that it's the poor person on Social Security that's buying a $400 pair of shoes. Okay. No, what I think is that the majority of them are being bought by a very few wealthy people who are going to end up at the end of this with a mountain of very tacky shoes that they're never going to be able to get rid of. At least they're not going to be able to sell them. Maybe they'll have to end up having to give them away. Or we might end up seeing like in the E.T. game. I don't know if you remember that. Atari made this terrible game, E.T. Didn't sell very well, so they ended up burying it in like the Nevada desert or the Utah desert. I can't remember which. That's going to end up happening to these shoes. Someday in the future, some historian is going to dig up a giant, pit filled with Trump's gold gaudy ass shoes.